Welcome back to Mincy Youth Online. This week I had a little chat with Bob and Tabi Wallington, and Bob and Tabi are some of the wisest youth workers that I've ever met. We talked about so much stuff, from northern accents to sharing faith with our friends, and I know you guys are going to love it. So here's Bob and Tabi. Bob and Tabi, I'm so excited to have you on Mincy Youth Online, having a little chat. I'm buzzing about it.
Mate, we're buzzing too.
I think you sound more northern since you've gone back up to the north.
Do you think?
Yeah, in a good way.
It's good, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great way.
Okay. Well, it's like, I feel like I wanted my accent to be a bit softer, but still have the like...
Grit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The like, oh, I know, she sounds like she's from the north, but not like horrendously... Maybe we'll edit that out because I don't want any northerners to be like, oh my gosh, she's saying my accent's horrendous.
I love the northern accent. I tried reading a story to Phoebe today, our little girl, who's 4, just turned 4. I tried reading a story in a northern accent just for a laugh.
How did it go?
Okay with some words, and then other words, I couldn't work out how to say house in a northern accent.
It's tricky. Was there like a particular dialect, like a particular...
Yorkshire. I went for Yorkshire. Is that northern enough? Is that...
I know.
Yeah.
It is, but it's all about Lancashire, Bob.
Lancashire. Should I be more...
Lancashire.
All right, sorry about that.
How are you both doing anyway? How are you finding lockdown?
Really, we're trying out many accents. We're reading multiple stories every day, the same stories over and over again. We're lucky.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm finding it okay. I had a few days last week where I just was like, oh, I'm so done. But I think when the sun's shining and you can still be outside at least a little bit, it doesn't feel as awful as I imagine it would, cooped up in a tiny little house.
Yeah.
No garden.
Yeah.
So it's all right.
I'm enjoying parts of it, definitely. There are like, I know that sounds weird, but there are parts of it where I feel a bit guilty for enjoying bits of it. I'm quite a home bird, like I like staying at home anyway. So there's parts of it where I quite enjoy just being in the house, and then the bits really get to you where it's like, oh, now I would really like to go out and just see my friends, or
just like over Easter, I hadn't had a cream egg. And I was like, I just want to nip to the shop and get a cream egg.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm going to be there like tomorrow. And I thought, what if I catch the virus just because I wanted a cream egg? So I didn't go and get myself a cream egg. But obviously it's a very minor issue in comparison to lots of people's. But those kinds of things do feel really weird, that you can't just like nip out, just go and do little things, doesn't it? Whereas you kind of get into the routine of being at home all the time, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I just fancy,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's those little nips out, isn't it? Like, I just want some chocolate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Got to eat like raisins or something instead.
I know, you got to fill your shop with all those kinds of things you might fancy at some point, don't you?
I know.
Thinking ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you been spending your days doing? Like, I know you've got children, so
yeah, that is really what I spend my days doing. So I've got a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old girl. So lots of den building, craft. Our walls are covered in craft.
Yes.
Playing outside, reading stories, quite a bit of Hey Dougie, which is a program that you wouldn't want to know about. What else am I doing? Bit of exercise.
Lots of baking as well.
Yeah, way too much baking. Yeah, that is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to join in with some of that. I'm studying at the moment, so I'm trained to be a vicar in the Church of England, and so I'm meant to be at college, at university, studying still, but obviously we can't be. So I don't have any lectures online anymore, but I have like little things each week that I have to kind of log in for, and then I've got 2 essays left, so I'm trying to finish those 2 essays, and then I'm free basically to help out with the kids and stuff.
Wow, it's free for summer.
I'm meant to be doing a placement for the whole of June in a church in Bristol where we are, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Yeah.
Well, at least you get to watch all the Hey Dougie and
Exactly. Build loads of dens.
Yeah.
We actually built quite a lot, haven't you? Like,
built loads of stuff. Yeah,
planters and
wow,
holders and a table.
Tied a big plank of wood to a tree in our garden and made a swing.
So we've done quite a lot of stuff, haven't we?
it's very productive. That sounds fun. I want to swing.
Wow, do you know what? It was a bit of a God thing because the girls were saying we want to swing. And we were like, where are we going to buy a swing? We don't want to spend.
This was in lockdown.
Yeah, just like X amount on a swing.
Yeah.
And I went for a little run, and there's this thing that happens quite often in Bristol where people put stuff outside their house, like kids' toys or old books, and you just like, if you want it, you can just have it. And there was a swing outside a house halfway around my run.
Just to see, wasn't it?
Just to see.
Yeah.
And then I just brought it home. Perfect.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
And it looked really odd running around with a swing. But despite that, it was great.
Have you both given it a go?
Say again.
Have you both given the swing a go?
Oh, it's a child-friendly seat.
It's more of a baby swing seat.
That's really sad.
But the girls love it, so that's great.
What a story. That's great.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So while this time, it's really difficult, isn't it? It's such a difficult time. But it feels easier than ever to invite friends to church or to invite friends to like something that we're doing, because you can just send like a YouTube link or a Zoom link, and it feels like, you know, people keep saying how the word prayer is being Googled like so many times, and people seem to be asking a lot more like bigger questions. So do you both have like any advice for our young people about how to start those conversations of sharing our faith with our friends or inviting them along to something that's going on? Do you have any advice for us?
Well, we were thinking about this earlier, and one of the things I was thinking is that because everything's done virtually and through text, you haven't kind of got the embarrassment if it all goes wrong or your friend that you text is really awkward about it. So I was thinking, just be really bold, and in conversations like via text or messenger or whatever, if people are saying, oh, I'm having a crap day or I'm tired or whatever, just say like really naturally, I'm going to just be praying for you for that. And you could say, I really believe that God gives us peace, and you could go on like that, or just say, I'm praying for you. And then when you are actually praying for them, ask God for something really specific. Like say, God, could you just give me like a word for this person, or even a verse, or just something, and then just make it really simple. Just text that person and say, hey, like I have been praying for you, and I like believe that God does speak, and I asked him to speak for you, and this is what he said. And they might love it. They might be like, oh, thanks, that's really nice, and not want a conversation. They might find it really awkward, but like it's another way of just showing people like God's not dead, and we believe in a living God, and we believe that he talks and he wants relationship, and this is what he said about you. But we don't have to use any of that jargon. We can just literally say like, oh, this is what God said, and see what happens. But even just saying I'm praying for you opens the door, doesn't it, to a conversation. So that's one of the things I reckon is easier at this point, because people are struggling a bit. So there's an easy drop in of like, I'm praying or whatever.
That's so
for your friends. Like I actually texted Tabi's brother a couple of weeks ago. He owns a business that's in recruitment, finding different people jobs and things like that. And obviously his business at the moment is really hit badly by the lockdown and stuff. And I just texted him and I said, hey, I just want to pray for you and for your business, because I knew that matters to him. You know, like, I want to pray for that. Is there anything specific I can pray for? And it doesn't have to be like, I'm not asking him, do you believe in God, or like, where are you at in your faith? It's more just like, I care about what you care about. So can you I'd love to pray for that. And that was a great little conversation starter as well.
Yeah.
And one thing, so I don't know if you didn't mention it, but one thing in the youth group that we used to help lead, I found out one of the girls who was in sort of like lower sixth or upper sixth, she used to send YouTube links or like Spotify links of worship songs to her friends if they were going through a rough time.
That's cool.
She just sent, hey, I love this song. It's from our church, or our church sing it, and just have a listen, see if it helps you. And just let them go with it. And one of those friends ended up coming to church and becoming a Christian. Just through that, not through that, like
that was the initial.
Yeah, that was where it started. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think going to say, well, in terms of inviting people, I think if I was not a Christian or something and someone said, I'll come to this group thing, there's loads of people you don't know, there's like a whole sort of like program that's not familiar to you, loads of language that you don't understand, like all of that would make me feel like I don't want to go. But because there's all this online stuff happening where actually like you can just sign in, you don't even have to speak, you don't have to really even let anyone know you're there, and you can just watch and partake, I think it's probably even easier to like come to youth group or like come to church. So if you guys are doing like social stuff, which I think you are online, just like text your friends, say like, hey, like I know you've been feeling a bit on your own or blah blah, like do you want to just come with me to this thing tonight? And again, it's like it's so much less uncomfortable doing it separately, like, you know, that people can choose how much they join in and don't join in, and it's so much less anxiety around it that I would just like say go for it, be bold. And I think the other really cool thing is that, like you said before, people like are really confused about what's going on. Everything's like being taken out of people's hands. There's not so much control, so people might not be knowing they're looking for God, but people are looking for an understanding of the situation. So being like comfortable in yourself to say like join with me in this church thing, or I'm praying for you, it's just like a really exciting time to do that. And I think one of the things that I felt worried about is like, oh, what if when I say that kind of thing, then people are like, but why has God let this happen? Or how can God be good if there's a virus or something? And I don't feel like I know the answers to that. I feel like I probably have some small ideas, but not like an answer that's going to make someone be like 100%, oh yeah, that's obviously the answer. But actually, I think us being able to say like, I don't really understand, but I really trust God, even when I don't have answers, might just help someone else go, oh, okay, like maybe I could explore who God is, even though I've got like 1,000 questions. So sometimes like not having any answers, but still trusting in God is a really amazing witness to people who are trying to work out like what's out there, what do I want to do with my life, what do I believe in, but struggle because of all their questions. And I think you having questions and still believing can be quite an amazing witness to someone.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. Love that. Tabi, you host a brilliant podcast that I love listening to called Looks Like Courage. And it's all about like, you just chat with people and listen to their stories of courage. And it's so powerful. So like, go and listen to it, guys. Looks Like Courage. It's on Instagram, on Spotify. That's how I listen to it, on Spotify.
Cool podcast too, but I think that's my 2 forums, I think. Yeah, actually my tech man, so. And
I'm not very technical, so it's a miracle that it's
on 2 places. Sorry.
Well, I love it. Go and check that out. So you talk to people about their stories of courage, and I think I just wanted to like ask you guys, what have you learned from other people's stories of courage, or your own stories of courage and the things that you've been through? Like, what have you learned from them that you have applied to your life, or that we can apply to our lives generally, or in terms of talking to people about faith and inviting them along to church?
I think the podcast really came about because I just, like so many people in my life, like almost everybody, when they start talking, you just are like, wow, like you're amazing. Either like you've been through that and you're still able to be here now, or just like, oh, you do that every day, that's so cool, or whatever it is. And at the same time, I was like reading all the stuff about resilience and how, you know, like people struggling to find it. And I just really felt like courage and resilience are linked. And that sense of like, if you have some sort of celebration of your own story, like if you actually think that like me going to school every day, even though I find it really hard, involves courage, or I don't know, it might be me being true to myself, or I don't know, whatever it is. There's so many moments that we don't think we have any courage. And so I think doing the podcast, it just really reminds me that you often don't notice the like everyday simple things that you do that I think are courageous. And there's one podcast by this guy called Ash, and he like went through quite a lot of different things in his teens. Like he thought he was going to be a professional tennis player, and that failed, and his mum and dad both really struggled with mental health, and he became like a primary carer and all kinds of things. And I think he talks about that period of his life now, going like, yeah, I can see how I had courage, and I can see how it required a lot of me to kind of keep going, but in the time he just didn't see it at all. And I think like part of the whole podcast is trying to encourage us that like we all have courage, and it's just ordinary people that have it. But what I would say, is I've really learned is like accepting your own story and being actually confident and celebrating the fact that you are still here and you're doing great things or just doing normal things. But I think that when you accept your own story and you celebrate it, it brings a real sense of like peace about who you are. And I think that's a really attractive quality to you. And that actually naturally people will be interested in how are you comfortable in yourself, like how do you like yourself, why are you not feeling certain things about yourself that everybody else is feeling. And so just in terms of like sharing your own faith, that's a really natural way of people just being like, I don't understand how you're like quite confident in this part of your life. And I think for all those stories on that podcast, I think they say like Jesus, allowing Jesus in and healing them up and celebrating their own story, it's kind of enabled them to be at peace within themselves. And so I'd say that's something that I've learned from doing the podcast is just people choosing to celebrate their own story. It's been powerful.
That's cool.
I love listening to them because for loads of reasons, but I love listening to the different ways that people they've got a story behind what you know. It's a story of like often of real people needing to find courage in like all kinds of different situations. And the thing that often strikes me about like when Tabs interviews the people about courage is that every day when people choose to face something difficult, or they choose to step into something that's challenging and they need courage to find it, it's almost like there's a sort of half a second where they have to choose it. It's like, and they choose it and they go, and it's like there's almost like a momentum that once they choose it, they don't have to keep choosing it. It's just like they choose it and they go, and there's like that. For me, I get inspired by those moments where everything's saying in you, don't, and then you say, no, I'm going to do it in a split second or half a second, and then bang, something changes or shifts, or you just move forward in your day for some of those people. And I just love hearing or trying to hear in the midst of the conversations, like where those moments are for people and imagine what they look like and, and how normal they seem, but how big an impact they have on these people's lives or their days.
I think in terms of like sharing faith, something that like probably in some of the stories you hear, but for us as well, it's like a really obvious thing, but like it's really hard to share something that you don't feel passionate about or you don't feel connected to or anything. And so like for me, like feasting on stories of God's goodness is like the thing that reminds me that he is exactly what the world needs and exactly what I need. And so like obviously throughout scripture there's like so much that reveals God's character and who he is, and just like looking at the life of Jesus, just unpacking that properly, not just like skimming over it, but like for me, like coming to know Jesus and realizing like that he actually wasn't oppressive of women, that he was like the biggest liberator of women at that time, and made me be like, flip, he's actually really awesome. And then I read like people's biographies, like amazing Christians who have all these stories of God's faithfulness. Last night we were just looking at this bit of the God Smuggler by Brother Andrew, and it's him like kind of in missionary school, and just like this crazy amount of provision that God gives him in tiny ways and big ways, and it just like raises the level of our faith. Like this is God, this is who we believe in. And so like in terms of sharing faith, like actually like feasting on who God is makes you want to share him. It's like that overflow of like, this is who the world needs. Like my friend who's really struggling, I can do everything I can to be a great friend, but ultimately the most effective thing that's going to happen in her life is if she meets Jesus or he meets Jesus. And that might just be about you having to pray without them knowing for like 5 years and then God moves, or it might be you having a really honest conversation, whatever it is. But if you don't feel like passionate about the thing you're trying to share, then actually it's like almost impossible to share it, because it just feels really awkward and really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
And we go for it, Bob. Were you going to say something?
Oh no, I was only going to say that just one thing that I often think about as well is that having kids, and even being married, you start to realise how much of a motivator love is. It's just like when you love someone, you do anything for them, and you'd even like it's like you do absolutely anything for the people that you love, and sometimes.
Except go and get me a cream egg for my
Although I would have love. So sometimes when it's hard to find the courage to like start talking to your friends about Jesus, or knowing how even to begin, like the first thing that you could do is just to pray, God, fill me with your love.
Yeah.
Your love, full stop. But that love extends, does stuff in ourselves, but it also shows us how God feels about those people. And that becomes the best motivator for a conversation or an act of kindness or whatever it is that begins that kind of like that unpacking. That moment of courage often comes from a moment of love. So praying that is the simplest way of beginning, with talking to your friends about Jesus. Like, God, fill me with your spirit, because your spirit is love. And I want to know how much you love this person in my life.
Yeah.
And then I want to have the courage to respond to that, or like to move with that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's great. And we've talked about before about, have you ever seen We Bought a Zoo?
Oh, yes.
And there's a part in the film where he says, like, I think it's when he's about to ask his almost wife out on a date or something like that. And he's like, just 10 seconds of courage, and then it's over. And then I always try and think about that of like, this might be horrendously embarrassing for like 10 seconds. But then after that, who knows? It could be like, I could have sent a YouTube link of a worship song to my friend, and then they could be like the bishop. So in a few years' time.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, it's like you're just part of the journey, aren't you? It's like I always think I'm just like throwing out seeds. Like, and I'm an awful evangelist. I find it really hard, just to clarify. I'm not good at this stuff.
Yeah.
But I just think like it's just my little bit on the journey that God's got for them. I'm not the one saving them. It's not about me.
Yeah.
But exactly like you said, like 10 seconds of courage. Like, just send that text that says, I think God's wanted you to know this, or I'm praying for you, or here's an amazing song, or whatever. Or like putting a book through their door, like, I've been loving this book, here you go, or whatever. And that's your bit. And it might be that God asks you to do something else later on, but it's just like knowing it's just my little bit, like we're all part of a bigger picture and a bigger journey, and not the only one that God's going to ordain them to meet at some point potentially.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's massively freeing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Especially when you fail.
Yeah,
when you don't get it right, it's like, it's okay. Somebody else.
Often if people do, like, they don't want to get your text, or they don't want to join in or whatever, after like a few messages, they'll often ask you questions about like what is this thing that you do, or like, what is this? And then you've got like an opportunity for a conversation. They might not necessarily say yes the first time, or know how to respond if you say, I want to pray for you. Because some people, no one's ever said that to them before. So they don't know how to respond. But after a while of like building up, you just gently, consistently, just like sowing into their lives, like Tab saying, like sowing seeds, finding those 10 seconds of courage, like stuff begins to happen and shift.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. So what 3 takeaways, you've got 3 takeaways to think of from this conversation that you would love for our young people to grab onto? What would they be?
Can I do the first one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, first one will be that I like that thing I was just saying about being filled with the Spirit. Being filled with God's Spirit is like, it's the best place to start for all this stuff. It's like, if you look at it like scripturally, if you look at what happened to the disciples, who were just like, a collection of people in an upper room waiting for the Holy Spirit to come, but like contained within this room and wanting to be safe inside this room. And the Holy Spirit comes, and suddenly they are empowered to be people who could talk like they've never talked before about Jesus. They've got, like, there's so much that happens for people out there because the Holy Spirit is in here. And so that's what I would say, like, number one, if you want to grow in talking to your friends about Jesus, it's grow in asking for the Spirit to fill you and being like, God, I want more of your Spirit. I want more of your Spirit because it's you. I want more of you inside me. And that's the place to start.
That's great.
I would say the one about feasting on stories, testimonies about Jesus, like start with him, then go to like all those biographies. Beth, you'll have loads of places people could find books to read stuff. But also like your friends and like Beth and your youth leaders, ask them, like, tell me about stories of when God moved in your life or whatever, because it's like, it just can't help but raise your faith when you hear like what Jesus is doing now, what he's done, and who he is. So I would say, feast on it, love it, enjoy it, because it's amazing.
Great. Are you looking to me for this one?
I'm trying to think what else we've said. Can we say something we haven't said yet?
Of course.
Go for it, yeah.
Well, I was just thinking that even though it's quite hard that everyone's like separate and not together for doing youth and church, that sometimes it's like almost like we can hide a little bit from God in big groups, and like we only ever learn to worship, or we only ever really learn to pray in a group where the sort of people are doing it for us a bit, where suddenly everyone's slightly forced into like spending their own time with Jesus and like figuring out what scripture means for themselves, and like learning to pray on their own and worship on their own, and even the sound of their own voice. And like, I just think actually that's really cool. It's really hard, but if all of us can like grow in our individual relationship that's outside of the crowd, it's just with him, then that's like going to set us up so much better for life, really, than even just learning to do it in a big group. And I think he like will be seeking our hearts right now. You know, he'll be like, Jesus will be aware that we're all on our own, or in our families or whatever, and actually like he'll be pursuing that individual time. So like leaning into that, and it's uncomfortable, and actually sometimes it's like it's a lot of silence when you're learning to listen, like learning all those kind of practices. But I think it's probably like one of the most essential parts of your faith, that you can just do it, you and Jesus, and not need to always be in like big groups for that to feel like it's growing, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, guys. This conversation has made my heart feel very warm.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, I've loved chatting to you. Thanks so much.
Can we just say, before you go, Minster Youth, you're very lucky to have a youth leader, Beth Bright.
We love Beth Bright.
We love her to bits, yeah.
We love you. Thanks so much, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Love you, mate.
Thank you.